Hey, what's going on, everyone? Demetrius Mack here, and welcome back to another episode of Tips, a series where I give unorthodox yet effective tips on how to succeed in video games. Today, folks, I'm going to be giving you guys some tips, but not on a specific video game. Today, I'm going to be giving you guys some tips on how to basically manage your video games the best way, how to get the most out of your buck. What can I do with this amount of games that I have? And if you're anything like me, and if you're a real gamer, a true gamer, this is videos for the true gamers out there who have a whole horde's worth of video games that can feel like it sometimes and just doesn't know what to do with them all. And I'm gonna be going over some of the things that I do to help me get through tough times in deciding how to best manage my time with playing my video games. So I know preferences play a huge role in this thing, folks. I do realize that. For instance, for me, I go to school full-time, I'm a part-time worker, and I'm a part-time YouTuber, among other things going on in my life. So my life can get pretty busy. So it's hard to divide these games up, especially when there's so much that you want to play. And this gaming world of 2017 is absolutely flowing with flavorful video games, folks. It is absolutely flowing. So what do? What do I do? Here's how I break it down, folks. Here's the number one thing I start off with. I look at all my games, and I say, what has the least replay value for me? What has the least replay value for me? And here's why I do that. Why? Now, some of you might be thinking, why would you go after the game that has the least amount of replay value, Demetrius? And it's simple. The game with the least amount of replay value is obviously the game that's going to be done the quickest, and I'll have nothing left to do with it. That way I can leave room for all my other games. Now, this obviously excludes people who exclusively play games that are maybe story mode based and nothing else after that. But the thing is with that is, if you have a boatload of games like that, that's going to take you a long time. So odds are there'll be a new game that comes out and helps you along, and that you're never left out with games such as story mode based games, because they're pumping those out all the time. And for you to truly be done with everything, if you're that type of gamer, if you're that type of gamer that likes to go in and get every single achievement, every single Easter egg, every single everything in all of these story mode games, you will always be full up. But I'm talking about someone who maybe plays story mode based games casually, who wants to get the game, who wants to beat it, and then they're done with it. How to best match that game up, how to best match up, for instance, a game like Outlast 2 versus a game like Injustice 2. Now, these are two completely separate games. The one key thing that separates them is, of course, the story mode and the replay value. Outlast 2 has no multiplayer. It only has a story mode. It only has the satisfaction of you getting every single secret, of you not missing everything. That's the end game. And no matter how long you take doing this, it's still not going to bring you more replay value than in Injustice 2, which has multiplayer modes and pretty much is going to keep you coming back time and time again. Of course, depending on preferences, some people may get bored with the repetitiveness, but that brings in my next topic, folks, and that is daily objectives. Daily objectives are one of the key things in multiplayer video games that are keeping games afloat. One of the best examples that I want to use for this is Grand Theft Auto 5. Imagine how long this game would have lasted if there wasn't constant updates and if there wasn't constant daily objectives to keep the user pretty much aligned with wanting to come back and the drive to wanting to come back. It's a very big thing. So that's the next thing I look at. Okay, so what else could get my time? If I have an hour a day to play a game, I might as well use that hour to get the best out of something. I might as well go to the game that I have, and I might as well spend that time doing something for it. If I do this with this game, am I going to get rewarded? And that's how I look at it. If I go into this game, let's say if I want to play a game that pretty much just doesn't reward me, why would I play that game instead of going over to For Honor, which has daily objectives that gets me my steel up, that can level my character up, and yada yada yada, stuff like that. So I think in determining what you want to get the best out of your time is, if I only have an hour to play, like I said, if you only have an hour to play, what are you going to do? Are you going to just play a game, just, hey, I just want to have fun? Or are you actually going to get something out of it? Now, again, that comes down to personal preferences. Some people could care less about daily objectives. I'm simply stating something that helps me in determining. But that still doesn't narrow the bunch, folks. That still doesn't narrow the bunch. The next thing that I want to talk about, folks, is updates, and are they free? After we've cut down on a lot there, we've cut down on replay value, we've cut down on daily objectives. You may still have a bunch of games that do have daily objectives, so you're like, okay, well, I have a bunch of games that have daily objectives. I want to play them all. Next, what you look at is the content, the DLC packs, everything that they're gonna charge you for. How much did you spend on this game? How much did you spend for the standard edition? And how much more could you have spent on a deluxe edition or superb edition or whatever the hell these $100 games that they be selling us out here? What is the content going to be like? Is it going to be worth it? Is the DLC going to be worth it? And for the most part, I like to look at it like, hey, how much free stuff are we going to be getting? You can look at a game like a Call of Duty, which does give you a lot of content. It does give you content that you pay for, but it also gives you a lot of free stuff. You get a lot of free guns, and you get a lot of free other stuff that they're adding to the game, which is just gonna absolutely put a game like Call of Duty Infinite Warfare at the top of the barrel here, folks, because that's something that not only am I gonna pay for a DLC that's gonna give me early access to all this stuff, but even if I don't, and I don't want any of the maps to say, I'm still going to be getting these updates. I'm not going to be left out. And a similar situation is like with For Honor. With For Honor, they just released 2 new heroes. They just released new maps and all the things that you can equip to your hero, new gear for your heroes. And it's all free. So that's the next thing you look at. What is the DLC like? What is the free content like? Because that's gonna increase the replay value tremendously. And like I said, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare is doing it the best. They're giving you free updates with free material, and you don't have to pay for it. The same thing goes with Grand Theft Auto 5. Like I said, the same thing goes with Grand Theft Auto 5. You don't have to pay for any of the free stuff that they're giving out, and they've been doing it for years. And that's how I guarantee you, that's how they have kept up their replay value. So the last thing it comes down to, folks, after you've broken down the replay value, after you've broken down the daily objectives, after you've broken down the DLC and the free content, this is where your choice comes in. And you think about that, now we can get to personal preference, folks. And what can help personal preference are your friends, if you have any. I know for the most of the time, I do have friends that game, but most of them are on opposite systems, or they just don't have the time, so I'm mostly a solo gamer. And I'm going to give you guys a couple of tips if you do have friends. Friends do play a huge impact. They play a huge impact, and once you have broken down those barriers, hey, that's when you go with your friends and you decide. But as a solo, like I said, this is coming from me now, as a solo gamer who primarily plays alone, it comes down to your personal preference. That's when you can start overthinking everything. Once you have made those key factors in, that's when you start talking about, you know what, okay, now what do I really like? What am I aiming for? But you have to factor in those things. You have to factor in everything we just talked about, folks, because it's important. It really is. It may not seem like it, and sometimes you may overthink it and be like, hey, I never really thought that thinking about replay value at first would be important, or thinking about daily objectives, or thinking about the DLC content, or what does it have versus what does it have of these sort of things. But it does. It's important. And it's important to me, and it's helped me in a lot of situations. I have a lot of games, and Lord knows, folks, if you've been on my channel for a long time, you know that sometimes games have fallen off for me. Sometimes games have taken long for me to release the next episode of, and it's hard. It's hard. These are tough decisions that you have to make. But if you factor in some of the things that I just went over with you, folks, I think you'll be in a better spot. I won't say you'll be 100% cured of your dilemma, because even I'm not. These are just some of the things that I just think of in my head all at once when I have a lot of games that are on my mind. And the final thing I really didn't want to include, and I don't really include it, and this is really just, like I said, a personal preference for me, but does the game that you really want to play, or the games that you're talking about, have seasons? Like an Overwatch, like a competitive season. Does it have, like a competitive season, nature that lasts a season, such as Overwatch or such as For Honor? Because that comes into the big play. When it's in season for Overwatch or for For Honor, my attention is pretty much going to be in those games because I'm a competitive type of player. But again, folks, that's all personal preference. I'm not saying you don't have to have personal preference. Some people think, this last step is like, I just want to play what I want to play. The problem is, you run into binds, like I was just talking about, and then you forget what you really need to factor in, and then you're just stuck between a rock and a hard place, and you're like, well, shit, I don't know what to do now because my personal preference wants me to play this game, but if you haven't factored in any things that I talked about, if you haven't factored in replay value, if you haven't factored in the DLC, if you haven't factored in the free content and everything, it's just gonna be hard and dang near impossible if you have a boatload of video games. You gotta time manage it the best you can, and you've gotta get the best out of the time and out of the money that you spend for your video games. So that's just my opinion, folks. I thought I'd just share this with you folks because I noticed my library is getting really, really large. All right, and I just wanted to share some of my thoughts on how I handle things like that, just in case any of you out there were kind of curious on how to handle these things, and hopefully this video helped some of you folks. I'd love it if it did, folks. So thank you everybody for watching this video. Tips drops once every month, folks, so be sure to check out the previous episodes if you haven't had your fill. And as always, folks, thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Until then, I'm Demetrius Mac, and I'm out. Peace.
Top dog, bite them all, yeah, I'm burning it up. DPGC, you should be turning it up. CPT, LBC, yeah, we hooking back up. And when they bang us in the club, baby, you got to get up. Cuz homies, thug homies, yeah, they giving it up. Low life, yo life, boy, we living it up. Taking chances while we dancing in the party for show. Slip my girl a 44 when she crept in the back door.